In this video, I'm going to tell you 4 things you need to do to avoid losing money with cryptocurrencies. In this video, we're going to talk about some cryptocurrencies that are currently at the top of CoinMarketCap. In this video, we're not going to talk about what you need to do to make money with cryptocurrencies because everyone on the internet is already talking about that. Some are more right than others. Instead, in this video, we're going to talk about what you need to do so that, over time, you don't lose your money, the money that took you so long to earn, so you don't just lose it outright in cryptocurrencies. We're going to talk about XRP, SUI, and many others. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started. And I'm telling you this right now, but I don't want you to do it just yet. If during the video you're enjoying it, finding it entertaining, or it's simply useful to you, please like and subscribe because it really helps me out a lot. Let's jump straight into the first point, and a little later in the video we'll talk about XRP. And this first point is the following: take responsibility. It's your money, you earn it yourself, so make sure you don't lose it. What do I mean by this? I'm sure you work a lot of hours during the day. I'm sure you work quite a few days a week. That takes away a lot of time you could spend with your family, your friends, your loved ones, maybe dedicated to a hobby you have, to traveling, to doing different things, even just watching a movie if you want. Why do we spend so much time working, earning money that is incredibly hard for us to make? But then, on the other hand, you watch the first video from any content creator, any video about some Chernobyl cryptocurrency, and you don't analyze anything at all. And to make matters worse, you don't take responsibility if things go wrong, and all you do is blame external factors. You don't analyze, on an introspective level, what you did wrong. Instead, you blame others. You spend a ton of hours working to earn that money, but then you don't analyze anything at all, you trust others, and in the end, you end up losing your money. Let's start taking action ourselves, learning to invest in knowledge, and let whatever any content creator tells you, whether it's me or anyone else on Twitter, on YouTube, serve as a guide, as something to confirm your own theory, what you already knew. If at any point you think you know more than I do and you just want to watch me for entertainment, great, I'll be here with you. I think that's awesome. If at any point what I say serves as a guide for you, great. But in the end, you should be the one who has your own judgment to invest in one cryptocurrency or another, with one risk profile or another, with responsibility in your portfolio. Because, for example, sometimes I get portfolios that are like, I've invested in this Chernobyl cryptocurrency, in this one, in this one, and in this one. And you realize that this person has invested 25% in each of the cryptocurrencies, and all 4 are cryptocurrencies where either things go really, really well, or you literally lose your money. Let's start investing with a 10-year mindset, thinking long term. Let's invest quality time in understanding how the crypto market works, because we'll sleep much better and probably live much longer, precisely because of the stress we'll be taking off our shoulders. That's exactly why, in this first point, what I urge you to do is the following. If you dedicate a lot of hours to your job, you're also going to have to spend some time reasoning, understanding, and internalizing how the crypto market really works, and not just let yourself be swayed by every guru you see on the internet. Remember, if you're enjoying the video, give it a like and subscribe. Leave me a comment about what you think so far or what you'll think as you keep watching the video. Also, in the description of this video, you'll find 2 referral links. One for an exchange with KYC, which is BitGet. I think it's the best exchange we have right now. And another for Wix, an exchange without KYC. You don't have to go through verification, and they set up your account in a minute. With both, you'll get a percentage discount on fees. If you're a trader, this is really good for you. Over time, you're going to save a lot of money. And I have a little surprise, so go ahead and make your account on BitGet or Wix, because soon I'm going to give away a pretty powerful trading tool. I'm telling you, I'll give you more information as the days go by. Why do 90%, I'm reading this literally, of new investors lose money in the stock market, in cryptocurrencies, in whatever? They don't understand how the stock market works. Let's just read the headlines. They don't know their true risk tolerance. That's what I was talking about earlier, about introspection, about understanding, about knowing ourselves. They ignore the possibility of suffering losses. When we're in a bull run and we're investing, we think we're going to be making money all the time because everything is going out. But no, we have to understand how macroeconomics works, which we'll talk about a bit later. We need to understand how the market really works and know that you can't always make money. They ignore the possibility of suffering losses. They chase returns. They don't know their investment time horizon. This is a very, very common mistake, and it's especially relevant in the world of cryptocurrencies. In November and December of 2020, and you can find this on this YouTube channel, I said I'm selling 50% of my portfolio, 50% of my Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana, which was 50% of my portfolio. Basically, in February, I said I was buying it all back, and in May and June, I sold another 50% of the portfolio. Knowing your investment time horizon is super important because no one is going to tell us when the crypto cycle will end, not you and not me either. I don't know when the cycle will end. That's exactly why you should take profits along the way and understand what your time horizon is. If Bitcoin has been going up for 7 consecutive weeks, which is what happened from May to June, when I took 50% profits, or actually about 45% to be exact, if Bitcoin has been rising for 7 straight weeks, at some point it has to correct, at some point there has to be a small pullback. Keep taking profits, diversify well, always keep a portion in Bitcoin, and think about the next 10 years. Everything comes together, everything gets intertwined in this theory I'm telling you about in this video. They invest based on emotion. We'll talk about this point at the end. At the end of the video, people hold on to bad investments until they're no longer at a loss. There are times when we're going to have to make tough decisions, and the toughest decision in cryptocurrencies is probably selling at a loss. But there are cryptocurrencies that are destined to fail, as we'll discuss a bit later on, no matter how good the projects may be. And we need to understand this so that, as time goes by, an investment that's down 30% doesn't drop to minus 40, minus 50, minus 60, minus 80, and then I'll get a message saying, Johnny, I'm down 80, 85%. What should I do now? Well, if you're down 85, 90%, at that point, just hold on. Unless it's a really large amount of money and you truly need it. But if you're down 90%, it doesn't really matter anymore because in terms of sunk cost, you have to pull that money out, take that loss, invest it in another cryptocurrency or another asset, and it would have to perform perfectly, perform extremely well to go up so much that it covers the loss from that 90% drop. And to make matters worse, maybe you sell at minus 90% and then that cryptocurrency recovers. If you're down 90%, it's no longer the time to sell at a loss, it's time to hold on. We're talking about when you're down 30, 40, 50%. There, it might actually be the right time to decide to take the loss. Because if you're down 50% in your next crypto investment, you need it to double just to recover your money compared to that 50% loss you have with the first cryptocurrency. They spend too much time on news and financial media. Analysis paralysis. This also happens with technical analysis charts. Many times, we watch one content creator, then another, and each one has their own way of analyzing the chart. And maybe someone, a viewer, comes along watching different YouTube channels or checking out Twitter, Reddit, or whatever, or Telegram, and ends up mixing it all together. They mix absolutely all the strategies. That's not how it works either. We don't have to mix all the strategies. We do need different confirmations because that will give us more certainty, a slightly higher probability. But just because you mix all the trading strategies doesn't mean your hit rate or your accuracy percentage is going to be higher. They don't have a sales process. They try to nail the exact moment to buy and sell in the market. Remember, take profits along the way. No one is going to tell you when the crypto cycle will end. Don't try to sell at the ADH. The chances of you pulling that off are extremely low. And when it hits the ADH and there's a pullback, precisely because you want to sell at the ADH, you'll end up waiting for the asset to go back up. November 2021, the crypto market started to drop from there November 8. People were expecting another rally. People were expecting another rally. People were expecting another rally. May 2022, Terra Luna crash. November 2022, FTX collapse. Bitcoin was basically down to $15,000. And from there, it's true that the crypto market started to recover. Take profits as your assets go up, because nobody has a crystal ball, not me, not anyone. I also want to remind you that in the description of this video, you have a referral link to access the Bitpanda broker, where they have more than 700 pairs. It's a regulated broker, and you don't just have to invest in cryptocurrencies, you can also invest in indices, stocks, and ETFs. It might sound silly, but when the crypto market ends, we only have two options: either withdraw the money directly or transition it to other assets. In a bear market, we could literally transition within the Bitpanda broker to, for example, stocks like Nvidia, Microsoft, Apple, and so on and so on. Not only that, if we access the Bitpanda function section where we can trade, we have different pairs, and we can also trade not just Euro with Bitcoin or USD with Bitcoin, we can also trade Swiss franc with Bitcoin or British pound with Bitcoin, which might seem trivial, but if you're from one of those countries, it's actually pretty useful. Guys, see you inside the Bitpanda broker. Thank you very much. The second point we're going to talk about in this video, and it has to do with XRP, but not just XRP, also with other assets, has to do with discounted value. Always, with any asset, any cryptocurrency, any stock, you have to ask yourself the following question: does it make sense for this to have this value? Always ask yourself this question: does it make sense for this asset to have this value? There's a lot of talk about how XRP could reach $1,000, $10,000, and right now it's at $2.19 with a market cap of 130 billion. One of the things that's often said about XRP is that the market cap doesn't matter at all. If the market cap doesn't matter at all, then why is there a very famous website that tells you the ranking of the world's assets with the highest market cap? There's a website that tells you which assets have the highest market cap in the world. Gold is wrong, Nvidia is wrong, Microsoft is wrong, Apple is wrong, Amazon is wrong, Bitcoin is wrong, silver is wrong, Saudi Aramco, which I think has to do with oil, is wrong, Meta is wrong, everything is wrong. The only thing that's going to be right is if XRP goes from $2 to 1,000 to 10,000. Guys, think about it. Let's think about it for a moment. I'm going to make myself big here to say this. If XRP could really reach $1,000, it makes no sense for it to be worth 2 right now. It's impossible for an asset that could actually reach $1,000. I'm not even going to talk about 10,000 because I think that's just way out there. An asset that could reach $1,000 just doesn't make sense being worth 2 right now. It should be worth at least 50, 80, 100, 150. People, institutions, those who really move the markets, if they truly believed that XRP could reach $1,000, they'd all already be buying XRP, and there's no way XRP would be worth $2. I think it's not even about math anymore. It's just logic. It's pure logic. If XRP could reach $10,000, XRP would already be worth 800 or 700 or 600. Why isn't it worth that? And don't come at me with the market cap argument because it doesn't make sense. We're talking about amounts of money that are ridiculously huge, and the hypothetical case that it ends up capturing 15% of SWIFT, that's insane. We're talking about what would be the biggest fundamental driver of any asset in general, whether it's stocks, cryptocurrencies, considering gold, silver, platinum. For an asset to capture 15% of SWIFT, that's just wild. It's something that would probably be the biggest fundamental driver, if it happens, of probably any asset in history, even bigger than Bitcoin. If XRP manages to do that, XRP will surpass Bitcoin, and not just by a little, it will surpass it by a huge margin. Bitcoin will end up being worth $250,000, and XRP, if it achieves everything it's claiming, and if it does achieve all that, they will reach hundreds and hundreds of dollars and will surpass it by a huge margin. So let's get a bit more grounded. In fact, if you ask any artificial intelligence, can XRP reach $1,000? The possibility of XRP reaching $1,000 is a speculative topic and depends on multiple factors: the required market capitalization, export projections, influencing factors, and so on and so forth. I'm not saying that it's absolutely impossible for XRP to reach $1,000 or even $10,000. What I simply want is to bring the logic down to earth, a certain logic. If XRP really could, and the people who control the markets believe it could reach $1,000, XRP can't be worth just 2 right now. It would have to be worth much more. Bitcoin will probably end up being worth, over the years, 500,000. But precisely because it will end up being worth 500,000, that's why Michael Saylor, BlackRock, Fidelity, VanEck, a bunch of investment funds, companies, states, regulators, and so on and so forth are already starting to accumulate Bitcoin. Everyone is already accumulating Bitcoin. Now, when you talk to people on the street, a lot of them still don't know much about cryptocurrencies, but more and more people have Bitcoin. We're talking about a multiplier of 4 times from where we are right now. We're not talking about a multiplier of 500 times from where we are right now. Let's start thinking logically. Let's get our feet back on the ground, because if at some point XRP is worth $1,000, it's pretty likely that decades and decades will have passed and will already be old or maybe not even around anymore. So let's get our feet back on the ground and start analyzing things logically. That's all I'm asking. For point number 3, learn about macroeconomics. Learn what the main indicators are. Learn to understand who controls the markets. Also understand how market structures work, what's at the top of the hierarchy, and as we go down, how that affects the rest of the pieces on the chessboard. For example, how global liquidity works, how M2 works, how inflation works, how triflection works, and based on that, how more or less liquidity is injected into the economy, how interest rates work, and based on that, how credit works, and how all of this affects companies. If we go a little deeper, gold. How does gold affect the economy? What does it mean when the price of gold goes up? What does it mean when the price of gold goes down? What does it mean when one of the main indices, if not the main one, is at an all-time high, the S&P 500? What happens when the Nasdaq drops? What happens when the VIX, the volatility index, shoots up? What happens when it drops? What happens when oil prices rise? What happens when oil prices fall? What happens during a cryptocurrency cycle? The phases that a cryptocurrency cycle goes through: accumulation, the bull run phase; distribution, a bear market phase; a reaccumulation phase; an expansion phase. How Bitcoin mining works. What happens when the mining cost is above the price of Bitcoin? What happens when the mining cost is below the price of Bitcoin, not just right now, but as the years go by? What's happening on an energy level around the world, because that's also important to be able to figure out what's going to happen with Bitcoin in terms of price. If we go a little further, what's happening with Bitcoin ETFs? Right now, a lot of money is flowing into Bitcoin ETFs. In fact, money has been flowing into Bitcoin ETFs practically since the beginning of May 2025. And if we go even further back, we can see that since the end of April 2025, money has been flowing into Bitcoin ETFs. Check out the beginning of the video. 7 weeks in a row with Bitcoin's price going up. At some point, there will have to be a pullback. At some point, we'll have weeks where money leaves the Bitcoin ETFs and the price of Bitcoin will pull back. If we go straight to the Bitcoin chart, we can look at the RSI, the MACD, and the chart in general. From here, this upward trend line is broken, we drop a little, and we can see that in terms of Fibonacci, if we draw a retracement from here to here, it's practically touching the 0.236 Fibonacci level. We can also start to go a little more in depth. If we lower the time frame, if we reach the 0.382 Fibonacci level, we would already have the daily RSI practically in oversold territory. The MACD would be a bit more complicated. There's a possibility of a double bottom. Why do we look at the liquidation map, the 1-week map? We're seeing that there's a lot of liquidity around here. On this upper side, there's not as much liquidity. That would make sense for the price to reach the 0.382 Fibonacci level, especially considering that we haven't seen much volume in recent days and that this could happen. And when we haven't had much volume in recent days and yet the price of Bitcoin, this candle here, drops by 2%, then a wick could shoot up, precisely because if you fall without volume, all it means is that people are just selling, but no one is buying. It doesn't mean that people are selling a lot, but rather that many people are selling some amount of Bitcoin, but the volatility isn't high. Finally, understand how the fear and greed index works. Understand how market sentiment works. You're not going to become a millionaire, but you'll beat 90% of people. Let's go straight to CoinMarketCap. Here we were in extreme greed. We're talking about March 2024, when we surpassed the ADH with a Bitcoin price of nearly $73,000. However, if we go to around October 2025, the price of Bitcoin was higher than in March 2024, and yet we were in extreme fear. And I'm going to ask you the following question, and I want you to leave your answer in the comments. Why is it that at 80,000 we're in extreme fear, but at 70-something thousand, after breaking the ADH, we were in extreme greed? Well, precisely because of how Bitcoin dominance works, it's exactly due to how adoption in the market works. It's quite likely that a lot of people entered the crypto market, and they did so while Bitcoin was pulling back. They never saw any ADH at any point, because maybe they entered in July, August, September, or October. We finally hit bottom, and from November on, we started to go up. How does the specific fear index for each cryptocurrency work? For example, we have Bitcoin in neutral, Ethereum in neutral, Ripple in neutral, BNB in neutral, Solana in neutral, Tron in neutral. For example, we have Cardano in fear. For example, we have SUI in fear. Let's go straight to SUI. Buying opportunity in SUI, 37 points on the fear and greed index. Is it a buying opportunity or not? Well, according to the RR, at least for me, a cryptocurrency that's getting diluted this much. And if you've watched the whole video, you'll remember the part where I said, if we make a mistake and we don't have a crystal ball, at least let's choose cryptocurrencies that will bounce back in the next cycle. And personally, I don't think SUI is one of them because it's unlocking a crazy amount of tokens. If you have SUI and the cycle is already over, and no one is going to tell us until a few months into the next cycle, it's quite likely that you won't get your money back with SUI. And knowing this only comes from years of experience, from analyzing tons and tons and tons of different situations that can happen in the crypto market. Guys, that's it for today's video. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the video, and if you would add any other points, leave them in the comments because I'll be reading them. And remember the tool that I'm going to give away soon. It's a paid tool that I'm organizing. All you have to do is register on one of the exchanges listed in the description, make a trade, and fill out the form, which you also have in the description of this video. In the case of BitDebt, it requires KYC. In the case of Wix, it doesn't require KYC. Remember, you have to make a deposit and a trade, and leave your information in the form linked in the video, and I'll contact you personally to give you that gift. Guys, see you in the next video. Take care, and see you next time.